5:15, 5:20-ish for me anyway.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, we are live, and I've got, what have I got? Oh, I've got stingrays back. Actually, those are not stingrays back there. Those are eagle rays back there is what those are.
Very nice.
Fun. Eagle rays. I mean, how are you doing today, Allison?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
It is Thursday.
It is Thursday, indeed.
It's a Thursday.
And it is just the two of us today. Dave is, I don't know what Dave is doing.
I don't know.
Dave bailed at the last instant with the man had to do what the man had to do. So you were telling me about running. What are you doing?
So my sister and I are taking part in this Liberty Road Challenge, which is put on by the World War II Museum in Louisiana, New Orleans. And so it's a challenge that between D-Day and September 11th, I want to say, when they liberated Bastogne, or at least got to Bastogne, you have to, the idea is, if you're a team or an individual, but I'm not that crazy, you you can run, walk, bike the distance between Normandy and Bastogne, 112 miles.
Gotcha. And how long do you have to do it?
We have until September, I think 10th.
All
September
right.
10th. And so we have 77 days left.
Okay.
We started at D-Day.
Okay.
So far, my sister and I have gotten 135.95 miles.
All right.
So far.
All right. Okay. Well, that's
so we calculated it out, and basically, if I run more than she does. So I do 2/3 of it, and she does 1/3 of it. Then that's kind of how, basically how I calculated it. So
and I kind of hate to admit it, but my exercise during COVID has sort of been exercise during COVID, and I feel it. It's this is a listen to yourself. I often talk to coaching clients, and it's like, okay, how are you doing, and are you getting the exercise that you need to get? All of those kinds of questions. And in the back of my head, I'm just thinking, you hypocrite.
The nice thing about working from home is I'm trying to maybe take a walk on my lunch break and knock out, a mile or whatever.
Yeah, that works.
On days that I run, I can put in, 7 or 8 more miles.
Yep.
Run for me. So.
Well, we're actually going to go camping this weekend. And it's our, 2 of our daughters are going to come along with us, and well, actually, no, 3 of our daughters, because our youngest daughter will be there as well. So I guess I should say all but one of our daughters will be along with us. And that will include a son-in-law and a couple of grandkids in the mix. So, and no, I don't want to answer that. There we go. Okay, that went away. I hate phones that just start. Anyway, I hate phones. I'll just leave it at that. I hate phones. But so anyway, we're gonna pack up, and we're gonna drive over to the White Mountains over in the eastern part of the state, and get a little bit of elevation so that it's not bloody hot, and just get out and enjoy for a little bit, while the rest of the state burns, both figuratively.
in every sense of the word.
In every sense of the word, that's right. Yeah, it's what do? You kind of sit back, and it's like, oh geez, it got over 100 degrees north of the Arctic Circle the other day.
Yes, it did. So basically, 2020 is a dumpster fire, no matter where you are.
So yeah, 2020 is a dumpster fire. It's. I wish that SpaceX was a few more years along on this whole being able to put people on a rocket ship and go to Mars thing. I think I would definitely sign up for that trip at this point. A little on the crazy side. So how is the grand reopening doing in Wisconsin?
It's going. Like I was mentioning earlier, I went to the grocery store yesterday for my, attempted once a month trip, which I've been doing pretty good. And basically 95% of the precautions that they had put into place the last time I was there were gone.
Okay.
So there was a mostly empty roll of paper towels and a bottle of sanitizer so you could wipe down your own cart because, you know, they have stopped doing that for us. Originally, there are two entrances to the place and they had it set up so that you could only come in one, you had to leave the other. That is no longer the case. Probably about 95% of the employees that I encountered were wearing their masks under their chins, which is super effective.
Super effective. Yeah.
And I mean, honestly, the weirdest thing, which was not the grocery store's fault, but I mean, I was checking out and this family crowded up behind me in the checkout lane, closer than I have ever had people stand behind me in the grocery store ever before, even in non-COVID times. I mean, I don't know what was going on, but it was like I could smell their perfume and like they were, you know, less than half a foot behind me. And it was like, guys, this is not the time to crowd people. I realize this is the only open checkout lane, but it was a little weird.
So did you turn around and say, back the hell off?
I wanted to. I was basically on my way out and paying, but it was like, yeah.
But no, I kind of make a point that I'm not going to let things like that slide.
Yeah, I'm not
just because it's, you know, like my wife the other day, she had to go to the dentist. She broke a tooth, was eating a hamburger, and there was a little bit of bone in it.
Okay.
And so she then crunches down, and about a third of a tooth drops off. And anyway, so she goes into the dentist to get it looked at, and drives up. And the waiting room is full of people, and nobody's wearing masks. And the receptionist isn't wearing a mask. And she saw this from outside, so she called him on the phone and said, "What the hell are you doing?" Right. And they seemed very shocked that she would even have that concern. And she said, "No, there is no way I am going to come into that office." And they seemed very shocked at that, which I especially don't get since it's a medical office. I don't get that at all. And so finally she said, "Okay, enough of this." And you know, she went elsewhere. But yeah, around here, it's getting kind of crazy. We are, you know, being who we are, I love numbers. And so COVID is an excuse to spend lots of time looking at numbers. And as long as you don't think too hard about what those numbers mean, it's all kind of a, you know, as we've mentioned before, COVID would be this lovely, fun, big puzzle if it weren't for all the dead people.
Right.
And it's really kind of interesting because, you know, as we've talked about, it takes about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks from when you do something for it to start showing up. And sure enough, Arizona, in its wisdom, opened up earlier than it had said that it would, May 15th. And about, sure enough, 2.5 weeks later, there it goes. And we are now, for the past few weeks, we have had new cases climbing exponentially with a doubling time of 7 days. Actually, it's last time I checked, it was a little bit under that, but you know, really very consistently like that. And we're sitting here at ICU capacity at, last time I checked, it was 90%. I haven't looked today. I suppose I could go look again. In fact, hey, why not? While we're talking, I'll go check and see where are we on ICU beds today.
Wisconsin cases have been going up too. So.
Oh man, it's just, well, here, I'll even share this for a second. One second here. We can do screen sharing here. So here, I will do screen sharing. There you go. I think people ought to be able to see that. Maybe not. But this is here in Arizona today are the ICU beds. And you can see that there is the exponential growth doing what it's going to be doing. And if you look at inpatient, there is the exponential growth doing what it's doing. If you look at emergency room, you know, there is the exponential growth doing what it's doing. You know, of course, you look at the number of new cases and there is the exponential growth doing what it's doing. And then if you look at it here and it's like, okay, yeah, Arizona, and
Yep.
Florida, and Texas, and California, which is Southern California. Okay, you know, they're just all going through the roof.
Yeah.
And if you were to ask, you know, we hear about maybe there's supposed to be a summer effect or something like that. And you look at your head and scratch and say, okay, let's see. We've got Arizona and Florida and Texas
And California.
and California. So clearly this doesn't like the heat, right?
Right. Yep.
Oh, but it really is kind of amazing. And it's, you know, completely predictable, completely predicted. Everybody who had their heads on even vaguely right knew what was going to happen.
Right.
How I'm going to ask you, put yourself into the headspace of a governor of Arizona. Okay.
I don't want to do that.
No, I don't want only temporarily. I wouldn't, I recognize asking you to put yourself into that headspace is kind of like, yeah, go check yourself into a COVID ward. Sure. How is it? How can someone who is an elected official, who has good people that are giving him information? I mean, you know, you look at what's coming out of the modeling group at Arizona State University, for example, and they have been just spot on everything that they've done. So you've got good people giving you good information, saying this is what is going to happen. And if you do this thing that you're talking about doing, what that means is that we are going to have a humanitarian disaster, and you're going to wind up having to close back down anyway because it's going to get so bad that you absolutely have to. In the face of that, what causes somebody to say, sure, I'm just going to go ahead and open up 2 weeks early because Trump's coming and I want him to like me?
I think that's the reason right there.
I
If you look to the leadership currently in this country, that is exactly what they're saying, is that go ahead and open up. The economy is much more important. And I think governors who were already maybe leaning that way, who would want to lean that way, see it as permission. And so they're taking that permission and running with it.
Permission. I'm really seriously perplexed by this.
Yeah.
That
humans are very good at, I think, when you don't want something to be the case, you choose to ignore it. We are very good at ignoring reality for as long as we possibly can. And again, this is still, if you look at this has only affected, say, 5% of the population so far or something. I'm sure it's probably a little bit higher right now, but, in general, it's still, obviously everyone hasn't had it yet. And I think it's still easy, despite the fact that things are really bad, for people to, ignore their concerns. We want it to be over. And so we're acting like it's over, and that's not the solution, but I think that's what people are doing.
Okay, the question I have on my brain, and I think about this a lot actually, is as scientists, you look at this and it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Don't people even care what's true? Doesn't it matter to them what's actually true in the world? Because for us, it's just like, of course people want to know what's true. And the recognition that the people who actually care about what is true, just because they care about what is true, is a remarkably low fraction of the population.
Mm-hmm. Because when things like this are true, your life gets harder and things get bad, and you don't want that. It's kind of the same thing. I know we had toyed with drawing similarities between COVID and climate change. And I feel like in the United States, it's the same thing. People choose not to believe in climate change because that would mean they'd have to make sacrifices of some kind or change their lifestyle in some way. And they don't want to do that. And so therefore they just ignore it. And my sister was telling me she has, several friends that have moved to, say, European countries, and it seems to be the case that, again, there climate change isn't an option to believe in, it's a fact. And the United States, again, sometimes because of leadership and sometimes because of other reasons, it seems to be an option that we can choose to believe in or not. COVID seems to be the case as well at this point.
Yeah, but of course, even if you don't believe in reality, reality believes in you.
It does.
And
that's what we're seeing.
And that's what we're seeing. And it's I don't know how I'm actually finding that as we hit the point that this is now really happening. We have been talking for a long time about, okay, you look at the numbers, it's clear what is going to happen. We saw the growth, the lockdown leveled it out some for a while. And then of course, the story, the telling of this that I like is somebody jumps out of an airplane, and this somebody doubtless has orange hair. Somebody jumps out of an airplane and is falling and comes to the realization that I'm falling, and saying I'm not falling isn't slowing me down. So, gee, I guess I'd better pull the, I pull the ripcord. And the parachute slows him down, and he says, okay, I'm not falling so fast anymore. And this parachute is kind of uncomfortable. I guess that means I can cut it away, right? And that's sort of the ride that we've been on. But we are now at a point where we are about to actually hit the ground.
Right.
Where, and we're going to hit the ground hard. Again, in Arizona right now, as we were looking at, we're new cases doubling every week. ICU beds are essentially full, which means that we are basically at the point where there are significantly more people who need ICU beds than we have ICU beds for them. I don't know what that looks like. I really don't.
Yeah.
I that's the kind of thing that you're used to seeing on National Geographic specials talking about, plagues often in the jungle somewhere or some such. That's always been the kind of thing that as completely unforgivably first world as it sounds, has always kind of felt a little bit like, all right, that's at least at a little bit arm's length.
I mean, I think, for a lot of Americans, that is the case. And so we're willing to do anything that kind of keeps things that way. And again, choosing not to believe that it's a problem keeps it that way, keeps it very far away.
Yeah, but what happens when you then hit the wall, which we are in the process of doing?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we do need Dave today. He's the historian among us, because this is not the first time this has happened.
Mm-hmm.
If
you again look at that flu pandemic of 1918, which seems to be at least the most recent example. I mean,
yeah,
more people are going to die because that's what happened then, because they did the same thing then. They opened up, and their second wave, which we aren't even at yet, was much more deadly than the first.
Yeah. So how many people are going to have
more than 120,000 or whatever?
More than 120,000 or whatever, and they're going to start dying on your block. But yeah, spin. I mean, looking here at comments, Joe yeah, mentions that politics is the profession that often involves ignoring inconvenient truths. Even when doing so imperils us all see climate change. Mm-hmm. From the perspective of people, I mean, let's now look at it from another standpoint. Arizona just had the second big Trump rally. Although, yeah, I should say the second Trump rally. Yeah. I guess big is the wrong.
Okay.
You know what the irony of the Tulsa rally was for me? The irony of the Tulsa rally was that when Trump got off the damn helicopter, when he was back at the White House, and was clearly just completely destroyed. And, he's just got the tie hanging down and he's just kind of, I think that probably that moment is the moment when he has looked more presidential in a sense than at any point previously. It's like, here is this one instant that you see that maybe on very rare occasion, some tiny little bit of reality seeps through into his brain, even if it's only a reality that says that he can't conjure millions of people out of thin air just by the force of his will. But spin. The numbers are the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
The numbers are bad. The numbers are clearly bad. They're doing what they're doing. All of the video is there showing what's going on in ICU units. All of that's just there. It's impossible to miss. I mean, it's all over the place. And yet a substantial fraction of people convince themselves that somehow it's just not happening.
I think it still feels far away. Or again, like I was mentioning earlier, they don't know which numbers to believe. And I mean, admittedly, we know that yes, there is, states are maybe not reporting numbers the same way. There are, I think, enough numbers that we can clearly see the trends. Mm-hmm. But when people hear that states aren't reporting numbers the same way, or that numbers are lagging behind because, it takes time to tally up numbers or something, they find it easier to choose not to believe them in a way, because they don't understand how the numbers are being generated or kind of the science behind that.
Okay, so I'm gonna a tangent here. What got you into science?
Star Trek. Probably. I wanted to be a writer. I don't know.
I rock Spock. Yeah, right.
Next generation. Too young for the original, but yeah. I mean, I used to love Star Trek. I don't know if I've told the story before. I wanted to be an engineer. I wanted to be Geordi LaForge.
Okay. All right. You wanted to be an engineer, and you wound up in.
I took one engineering class for about 2 days and was like, oh no, this is too hard. Physics is easier. You have to be right to like 10 decimal points in engineering. In physics, you're like, yeah, it's between 10 and 100, and you're right. So,
it's funny. Our oldest daughter, who has a PhD in physics, she's an astrophysicist as well. When she went off to college, she was going to be an engineer, and that's what she did for a little bit, not for all that long, but for a little bit. And then she called home one day and she said, we were talking, and she said, would you be terribly disappointed if I dropped engineering and went into physics?
And I guess I knew that question. It's silly.
Me disappointed that you're going into physics? Oh, I think that would be a horrible idea. Right. No, but I guarantee, I promise, I played it cool. Said, no, Janice, I wouldn't be at all upset if you did that, but you tell me about it. And she said, yeah, I'm taking these engineering classes. And the classes are, I'm doing well in the classes. The classes aren't that hard. I'm doing fine. But oh my God, the thought of spending 60 hours a week in the presence of these people for the rest of my life, I just can't take that.
Most of my friends are engineers. They were a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, engineer. I mean, we need engineers. Engineers are a special breed. Astronomers are the same way. I mean, there are definitely some astronomers that I would not just want to spend 60 hours a week with.
Right.
But
yeah. I have a list of those as well, but I don't think we should compare our lists right at the moment. No, perhaps not.
But yeah, I mean,
perhaps not. But a few of them, their initials are. But no, I'm not going to go there either. Hey. So okay, so what? So you wanted to be Geordi. You went from engineering to science. Mm-hmm. But what took you in that direction instead of off into I don't know,
Uh,
art, or
I
you're
probably
an
would have been reading
artistic type as well. What what
English.
took you this way? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of something I decided I wanted to do. I guess I don't really have like one of those inspiring stories of this is the moment I decided I wanted to do science. I just kind of wanted to do it. It seemed like a cool thing to do. I mean, in a way, I mean, this is me looking back now, but something like Star Trek, I think, has a very positive message. Star Trek especially has always been this kind of message of like science can make things better, people working together can make things better, diversity can make things better. We can have a positive, good future for
Mhm.
humanity. And I like those kinds of messages. I mean, for all that I probably sound like a pessimist on this show most of the time, I really do like things with happy endings. I really do, I swear. I don't like watching terribly sad shows.
Yeah, hence the getting on the SpaceX to go to Mars, and
Right.
yeah, right. I got
I
you.
don't know, I'd have to grow potatoes.
I
That's
got
not
you.
fair.
Yeah. No,
But yeah.
we need, yeah, Gene Roddenberry. I heard Gene Roddenberry speak one time when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Just very interesting guy. It's our society maybe actually owes him a lot.
I think so.
You know, things like Kirk and Uhura having the first interracial kiss and on television,
Or even
and
just Uhura in general, or like,
oh yes, yes,
having a Japanese man at the helm, or, having a Russian, all of
yep,
these things. I mean,
yep,
I think, yeah, the fact that he managed to get that done and made that happen changed so much in our world,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
think it'd be very
yeah.
different if he hadn't.
Well, he managed to do it for a little while.
Mhm.
I mean,
I
it's
mean,
it's you think back on the original series, and it was 3 years, for crying out loud.
mhm.
I
Well, and they,
again,
they couldn't they couldn't have a woman first officer. That was the one thing they couldn't get by
that
them.
that was the one thing they could. So instead, we got Nurse Chapel,
Right.
and but I don't know. I always liked Nurse Chapel, and I also always really liked Spock. I mean, I honest to goodness did, when I was in junior high school, have a notebook that had on it "I grok Spock." So I that's
Very nice.
geez, was I really that geeky? And the answer is yes, I really was that geeky. To which the next comment is was, but let that one hang there. Um, so yeah, it
Yeah, I think it was
but
just.
I just the difference between people who say, okay, I want to go do science,
Mhm.
and people who say, no, what I want to do is I want to go figure out a way to lie in ways that people will believe me
Well,
anyway.
in a way, that's writing fiction, at least. So I guess that was my other option. But
Oh, but
no, I mean, again, like I have always been very interested in fiction, and probably had a very active imagination and all of these things. But I can still separate, reality from fiction. I don't know if that's the problem for other people, but
yeah. So can society survive it? Or how long can society survive it?
well, somebody's going to survive it. Just maybe not as many people as we want at this point.
Well, I mean,
I don't know.
define survive.
Yeah.
I mean, what does survival look like? That's we're now on a long time soapbox of mine. Not that I have ever had a soapbox. I just it was actually kind of funny the other day. Our second daughter was talking to my wife and was carrying on actually about why aren't more people able to look at numbers and things like that. And I wasn't part of the conversation, but I guess she stopped in the middle of it and told my wife, tell dad that if he can't find his soapbox, I've got it.
I mean, I think
Um,
so many people don't. I mean, again, it kind of comes back to this. So many people see science and especially math and statistics as just incomprehensible. And they think that they will never get it, and they don't even try in that case. I mean, it seems to be in the case of most kids. I mean, I don't like math either, but I mean, yeah, they just don't even try because they don't think they'll ever understand it. And so as soon as something like the media starts reporting on numbers, they just tune out because it involves numbers and statistics, and I don't understand that anyway. So that could be part of it too. I don't know.
So when did it become uncool to think that there are people around who actually do know what they're talking about?
I don't know, but it has happened clearly. I mean, I don't want to blame everything on this administration because I don't think that's the case. I mean, I think it's maybe, I mean, obviously with something like climate change, I think it's kind of been building, you know, it's probably been coming a long time. I don't know why it started or when it happened, but yeah, I mean,
Well,
and
now you know about the connections between the American Tobacco Institute and the, what do they call it, the Heartland Institute and
yeah.
all of that stuff.
Well, and I mean, there's also I mean, I know we've talked about this before, touched on it, but this whole thing with people claiming that they're skeptics. And being a skeptic, a lot of people take that to mean I don't believe anything anybody else tells me. And people hear that being a skeptic is being scientific and being, you know, knowledgeable, and so they kind of take it in, they take it too far. Whereas being a skeptic is just being skeptical until, you know, you see the data and it proves itself to you. People that claim, there are people I think that claim that they're skeptics make, and it makes them feel smart, but really what they're doing is just disbelieving everybody.
Yeah, it's ironic. I I am skeptical of your theory could mean two completely
Right.
different things.
Mhm.
You know, if I say, okay, you and I understand what a theory, honest to goodness, is, and the idea that it's some makes real testable statements about the world and you know, so on and so forth, and I say I am skeptical about your theory means that I am confronting your theory with evidence, and I am challenging your theory and trying to show that it has problems, because that's how the whole thing progresses. And then one of these characters says, I am skeptical about your theory. And first of all, by theory, they mean your wild ass guess,
Mhm.
or what they take.
I
And by
think is wild.
skeptical, it means they just don't want to believe it. And so they're not going to listen. And so, yeah, but an awful lot of that is intentional.
Mhm.
I mean, you look at what's going on with Trump and crew, for example, and very, very clearly what they are about is persuading people to to not believe the evidence of their own eyes and ears.
Mhm.
They are about, I mean, they're gaslighting the world.
Mhm.
And they've got, you know, of course they've got Fox News that's helping them do it. And one of the things that upset me, I watch Rachel Maddow quite often,
Mhm.
but it's always, that's sort of one of my, that's really the only televised source of information that I rely on. I would not want anyone out there to think that I'm a cable news junkie. I am not a cable news junkie. I actually read honest to goodness publications. I even read those publications. You know, you see the charts where they say, okay, over here are the really left-wing publications, and over here are the really right-wing publications, and down here are the publications that are just making it all up to pull the wool over your eyes, and up here are the publications that actually try to kind of get it right. I actually sort of restrict myself to reading the publications up here that are sort of in the middle and actually trying to get it right. Okay. So now that I have tried to protest too much and reclaim my good name, having admitted that I actually do watch Rachel Maddow. Rachel is such a policy wonk, though. I don't know if you're a Rachel Maddow fan or not, but
Don't have TV.
don't have TV. Yeah, she's there on, good for you.
I know who she
Yeah,
is, but
yeah.
yeah,
But
I've never watched her show.
she did a story the other night, and the way that she did it, I had to turn it off about halfway through, and then I had to go and I did dishes for the next 2 hours or something like that. I don't know what it was, because what she was talking about was the guy that Trump brought in to take over the agency that is responsible for, you know, Radio for Europe and Voice of America and all of those. Did you hear this story?
I did not. No. I'm
Brings
starting.
in this guy, I forget his name, but he you know, he was a Breitbart acolyte from way back, and his background was in making movies that talk about how gays are trying to end the world and, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And of course, the Republicans are more than happy to hand him control of the organization that oversees what is actually one of the largest media uh, organizations in the world, which is the United States Voice of America and all of these things. And the first thing that he does is he comes in and he fires everybody. And I really do mean everybody that has anything to do with those, everybody at the top of the head. He fires all of the boards for all of those organizations. And, it's fairly clear that what's going on there is Trump somehow thinks that owning Fox News isn't enough.
Mhm.
Or maybe somebody on Fox News at one point actually said Trump was not the second coming, and Trump got pissed off about it. I don't know. And so now Trump has himself this huge media organization that's out there that I'm sure he is going to put to use to try to spin the world. And I mean, at this point, he's trying to spin COVID. He's trying to spin the demise of justice. He's trying to spin the whole racism thing. He's trying to spin the fact that the entire rest of the world looks at the United States now and says, "You poor people."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, we can't get into Canada. I don't know that we can get into Mexico. Maybe we can get back into Mexico now, but it looks like we're not going to be able to get into Europe. It's and so he has to spin all of that.
We can't even
he
get
has
into some states at this point,
Yeah.
depending on where you're from.
Hey, I'm from one. It's a good thing that I don't want to go to New York or Kansas.
Right.
I was amazed. Kansas says that if you're from Arizona, you can't come to Kansas without doing a 2-week quarantine. Kansas. I mean, I'm
Okay.
kind of astounded. They actually have a Democratic governor. Is it possible that Kansas is going to emerge from all of this as a sensible place after all? I don't know. Its neighbor Oklahoma sure as hell isn't, but that's another story. Yeah. Having grown up in Oklahoma, yeah, that's lots of other stories. But so, okay, as a scientist, how do you emote about people just standing up and saying, here is this fact, and this fact has tremendous consequences for the world, and all of these people just decide, well, we're just not going to believe it and go on and pretend it's not so and say it's not so and use our media empire to tell people it's not so and look the other way because that lets us put money in our pockets? How do you emote around that?
Don't know.
Phenomenon?
I don't know. I mean, yeah, I think it's difficult. It's obviously very difficult for people that see this happening, because I think again, I don't know how much of people choosing to disbelieve reality is them not realizing that, say, the said media outlet is no longer feeding them the truth. It's hard. And I mean, asking the individual, it's like asking the individual to protect themselves from COVID. Asking the individual to do all of this research is difficult and probably unreasonable, because a lot of people aren't going to do it and don't have the time or the understanding or the knowledge. Yeah, it's very difficult. I don't know.
And that of course takes us off into the whole business of, once upon a time there was the idea of equal time in the media, which on one hand was good. On another hand, it gave rise to the sense that giving people equal time means that if there are 97 people over here who really know what they're talking about and are all in agreement about something, and you have one person over here who first of all, doesn't know anything about anything, and second of all, is being paid to express the opinion that they're paying, that still somehow equal time means giving both of those groups the same amount of access to the public's attention. But what must it feel? I mean, I head scratch about this. What must it be like to be inside the head of a full up Trump supporter?
I
What I
know.
I can't.
I mean, I think I don't know that I have words for it. I think I know what I'm trying to say. I don't know that I can say it. I mean, to me, I mean, my sister and I have talked about this a lot. It seems like being a Trump supporter means that, again, it's this idea of permission. You are being given permission to do things that you maybe know that you shouldn't. You are being given permission to hate certain groups of people. You are being given permission to protest reality, frankly. But I mean, it's kind of like that thing where when you're a kid and you want to do something and you know that it's wrong, but if no one catches you, or if someone tells you it's okay even though it's not okay, then you feel like you can get away with it. And I feel like there is some of that probably for some of those people in a way. Again, they don't want to be told that it's not okay to hate groups of people. They don't want to be told that they have to wear a mask. They don't want to be told that they have to stay home. And so when they get permission from Trump or someone in that party or someone in that media to not to that it's okay, it's fine to hate those people, it's fine to go out without a mask, then they take it and run with it. I think
But yeah, I know. But what is it?
I don't know.
Yeah, this is a thing. I am fascinated by psychology. I'm fascinated by neuroscience, evolutionary neuroscience, the way that we construct our realities and all of those things. We should do some shows on that. I'm sure we will at some point.
Yeah, we will at some point.
But it's, I think maybe for me, if I can step out of the, all right, I just want to go outside and shake my fists at the heavens mode. I try to hold on to detachment. Most of the time I fail, but what can I say?
Again, humans, it's very hard for humans to be detached and objective. It really is. Humans are objective by nature.
Oh no, I think in this case I'm being reasonably objective. I'm just,
yeah.
I am objectively scared shitless right now. I am objectively scared, and justifiably so, I would say. But yeah, it and so I accept the idea. I understand the idea that, all right, each of us constructs our own reality. I mean, honest to goodness, we construct our own reality.
Right.
That you can have a bunch of people in a room and they are sharing the same physical room, but experientially we're not talking about interpretively.
Right. No, they're perceiving things different. Yeah.
But they are perceiving the world differently. And I know that's the case. And yet, to then talk to somebody or hear somebody who is asserting things to be true that are just so patently, obviously not true, and doing so because they want to, or they have been directed to, or whatever. I know. I mean, that I know intellectually that when a Trump supporter gets going about, oh, those damn liberals are just trying to steal my freedom by making me wear a mask, or, oh, really, those numbers are all just made up and it's all just a deep state plot and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it is total crap. You apply the mode of knowledge that you and I accept as, all right, you challenge things with data and you see what can withstand
There's
can
no argument.
withstand that. And so objectively, these things that they believe are patently absurd. And yet I'm convinced that they truly believe them.
Yeah, they do. I think that's what it comes down to is it's very easy to convince yourself of things, especially the more you want to convince yourself of things. And so I think they absolutely believe that these things are the truth. They have managed to convince themselves that whatever they want is the truth.
Yeah. And so if you declare the spin to be reality, then for many people, the spin is reality. Mm-hmm. Or at least that is in their constructed perceptual experiential worlds. Mm-hmm. That's real. And so what's weird about scientists then is that for some reason, we've decided to care more about the objective world that is out there that we all share than we do our interior constructed worlds that we build for ourselves and inhabit.
Scientists are weird. Clearly, we're a small percentage of the population. I think that's our problem. I mean, I almost want to say that we clearly need to teach better critical thinking skills in school or something. Maybe this is something where we overhaul the educational system in a perfect world and start young and teach kids to do this. I don't know.
I think about that. It's always, okay, we need to teach critical thinking. And I agree we should. And I roll my eyes when I read things like the Texas Republican Party platform from last time around that very explicitly said we reject any education that teaches critical thinking or anything that might cause someone to question the beliefs and opinions of their parents. Mm-hmm. And that really is what it says in the document. And
I mean, kids are naturally critical thinkers. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, kids are naturally that way. And again, it obviously depends on the kid. Some kids, believe whatever they're told. But I mean, I feel like a lot of kids are curious about the world. I mean, kids are kind of inherently scientists. They want to know how things work, and they go out and observe things and test things. And somehow it kind of, drops off at some point. I guess maybe when it becomes schoolwork is when it drops off. I don't know, but
there is that.
So maybe we shouldn't teach critical thinking, but I mean,
the problem with saying teach critical thinking, and again, I am all for. I am all about the importance of critical thinking. I am all about the idea that critical thinking has to be a part of the curriculum in the way that it's not. I'm also all about the idea that metacognition needs to be a part of the curriculum in ways that it's not. At what point do you actually get some instruction on this is what it's like to walk around with a human brain? But what you really have to have if you're going to if you're going to change, if you are not going to view the world in that way, that depends upon having experiences and having role models and having not just, okay, we're going to teach this stuff in the class, but having things in your life that provide you with the experiences and the memories and the values and the positive connections and all of those things, so that is what you construct your experiential perceptual world from, as opposed to somebody who all that they have had is a world where, no, if you don't agree with me, then you're going to get a backhand, or this is what our group believes, and should you question anything, then that means you're horrible, and this, that, and the other thing. And that goes Boy, this turns into all manner of interesting questions. We could very easily at this point branch off into things like racism,
Mm.
where
Not branch off. We don't have that much more time, but
we don't
yes.
have no, we don't
But
have
we
that much
could.
more time. We
Yeah.
could.
Mhm.
I'm not
No,
really
I
gonna
mean,
do it. I'm not really gonna do it apart to say that
no, I think a lot of
yeah,
these big societal problems that we
yeah,
are currently dealing with kind of all stem from the same thing, maybe.
yeah, yeah. And it has, and changing them means that you actually have
Put
to
in some.
work with the brain the way the brain really works.
Mhm.
And I think now we've come around to a point where I might start railing about things about the left that really, 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 really annoy me. Um, Among them, the fact that screaming in somebody's face that they're this, that, or the other thing is not actually likely to make them not this, that, or the other thing.
Somehow that seems to be the case, and yet, I
And I
mean,
mean,
the
in
guy is
some
still blue no
cases,
matter what you tell it. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, okay, having said that, all right, I suppose I do that every now and then to a Trump type, but maybe that's because somewhere deep down inside I've just written them off. I hope that's not true, but it may well be. I do know that right now, yeah. My immediate reaction anytime I hear somebody talking about reaching across the aisle right now is you don't take a towel to a knife fight. You know, throwing in the towel is just a bad idea. Pretending that the guy standing there with a knife coming after you, if you just sing kumbaya enough that somehow it will all be okay. Yeah, that's not the way the world works. Anyway, well, it is getting on toward that time, and you've got some running to do, I think, and I have some packing to do, trying to get ready to go camping tomorrow. So, and I'm going to try, I promise. I don't know if I will succeed or not, especially since there's going to be a bunch of the family there. But I promise I will try very, 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 very hard not to spend the next 3 days shouting at the heavens about COVID and climate
I mean,
change and
sometimes you
Republicans and
do need to take a break. I mean, I think
yeah,
part of some of the problems that we're running into right now, part of the, not to get into a whole other tirade, but I think a lot of people are having trouble,
yeah,
worrying. I mean, not that they're having trouble worrying about it right now, but they want to stop worrying about it because that's all they're hearing about. And you can get burned out on it. So I think there is
yeah,
nothing wrong with taking a few days off because unfortunately COVID will still be here when you come
yeah,
back.
yeah. That's right. COVID will still be here when we
Take a
come
couple
back.
days
I
off.
don't. I don't take a few days off. Getting my brain back in order is not necessarily a bad thing to do. That's another one of those things that I know full well.
Yeah, but
You
it's hard.
know, I know that full well. And again, back into when I'm wearing my coaching hat, I will ask people, okay, you know what? Tell me what it is that you are gaining by carrying this thing forward in the way that you are.
Right.
So yeah, I will put on the coach heal thyself hat for the weekend
There you
and do everything that I can do to pay attention to things like walking along nice trails in the mountains, being certain that I don't get within shouting distance of any other human beings.
go.
Anyway,
Do what you can.
do what you can. All right, Allison, take care, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good.
All righty, bye bye.